Well, hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. My name is Peter Drakulic, and in this video tutorial I would like to show you a few things about Freestyle plugin available for Blender. Freestyle actually doesn't ship with the default Blender version, so if you want to actually follow along, you have to go to graphical.org and download a bundled version of Blender with Freestyle. Okay, so if you want, just go to graphical.org and download a Freestyle bundled version or build, and let's get started. First of all, Freestyle is a what we call non-photorealistic rendering system, which allows us for some very stylized, very beautiful stylized, cartoony or sketchy looking renderings based on the detection of the edges of a 3D scene. So what actually Freestyle does is that it takes a 3D rendering and it tries to detect or the outline or if you prefer the edges using a whole bunch of presets or parameters that allows us for controlling how Freestyle will detect and will draw the edges of the 3D rendered scene, of our rendered 3D scene. So here we are presented, we have a very simple scene with Suzanne, and as you can see I have assigned three materials, shaded materials, and that's very important to Suzanne. One for the head, one for the eyeball here, and this one on the eyeball again. And let's go ahead and perhaps change this material to something like, something like brownish. All right, something like that. So, and let's go ahead and have a render of this. And as you can see, this is a realistic, as we call it, render, with shadows, with reflections and things like that. But Freestyle has been primarily designed for giving you a sketchy look, a cartoony, non-photorealistic look. So that's why if we now go ahead and enable Freestyle, and we can do this by first, I want to tell you that Freestyle does work with cycles render. So as you can see, you have no option for Freestyle in cycles render. So you want to work with Blender render if you want the Freestyle plugin or module to have an effect. So how actually do we start working with Freestyle? First of all, you have to go up here at the render panel, right here, the render tab, and where it says post-processing, find this tab here, post-processing, unfold this tab, and if you have installed Freestyle, okay, then you are presented with two more buttons here. One for the it says Edge, and the other says Freestyle. Well, the Edge option here, it's very basic and allows us for drawing actually an outline, all right, a cartoony looking outline, okay, based on this threshold value here. Okay, so by scrubbing the slider, you can adjust how much of those outlines are going to get drawn. So those two buttons actually work independently. It seems to work independently from each other. So I could actually have enabled both the Edge option and the Freestyle. So let's have a render first with the very basic Edge option. So I'm pressing F12. So we have this render, and as you can see, the color of the edge outline is the one that we can set here in the color wheel. So I could make this something like orange something, so I have something like that. Now with the threshold value, I can start with a low setting, and as you can see, I have only a few lines, and I can go as high as, I don't know, somewhere here. And I mean perhaps something like over, and if I press now, you can see that it starts drawing not only the thick lines, but also those lines that correspond to the subdivided mesh as well, as you can see. Alright, this is about the edge option. Okay, and now let's go to the meat of the Freestyle module or plugin, which is actually this button here, the Freestyle button. And by enabling this button here, we can choose, or we can actually select from a whole variety of presets for styles, for cartoony or sketchy renderings, and of course we can always set our own ones. Of course, those two options can work together, so you can have both of them enabled together, or you can keep the one you want. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how this Freestyle option here works. All right, first of all, somewhere here at the render panel, we can see that we have a Freestyle tab, and here it is where you want to work for adjusting your styles. All right, so we have actually some ray casting algorithms, which is a rather technical kind of thing, and you want probably to play around with this and see which one of those algorithms work best for you. And we have actually two main modes for controlling the way Freestyle has for detecting the edges of our 3D rendering. So the one mode is by default, you should see the parameter editor mode. But we have yet another one, which is the Python scripting mode. Well, the difference between those two is that when in Python scripting mode, I can go down here where it writes Add Freestyle Module, and by clicking on this button, as you can see, by default, a style has been added here. Well, a module has been added. This is actually a module. This is a PY or Python script. So if I click on this folder icon here, I can select from a list of preset styles. Okay, each one of them being a PY file or a Python script. All right, a module actually, and we can invoke this module, and we can actually add the certain style to our rendering. So if I go, for example, select this, let's say this nature PI, you can see that, and click accept, you can see that I have a very different result now. All right, in my rendering, you can see this red line. Of course, you could have this by default contour PY here, PY, and you can go ahead and add yet another Freestyle module. Click on this button, click on the folder icon, select nature PY, for example, and click accept. Now if I click, if I render, you can see that both of the styles, both the contour and the nature, as it is called, PY, are work together, right? Are actually superimposed the one on top of the other. Okay, this is the basic functionality of the Python scripting mode. Of course, here you have some other options, and those options have to do with what we call edge detection options. And you can select, you can actually set how the Freestyle detects the edges by selecting those options here. For example, you could set a face smoothness factor, and you can adjust the crease angle of the 3D mesh itself as a factor for detecting the edges. You could select the material boundaries, and in this case, where a material stops and another material, where two materials meet together, here a line should be appear. Let's press F12 now and see how it works. So yeah, usually, well, it depends on other factors as well, but as you can see, a new line has been added here, where is the line between the two materials. You can select by ridges and valleys, and you can select, which is self-explained, of course. This is a ridge here, and this is a valley, okay? And these are actually are filters that we can add and select, different types of edges. For example, if I go to advanced edge detection option, I have two parameters, sphere radius, all right, and IK derivative epsilon. Of course, this is very important. This IK, this KR, derivative epsilon. is very important, because if I set this to a negative value, more contours are going to get drawn. Okay, as you can see now, I have enabled this. It takes a while, and you're going to see later on that by setting this to a negative value, more suggestive contours are going to get drawn. Whereas this, if this is at the positive value, only a few of the suggestive contours are going to get drawn. So these are filters in brief about what type of edges Freestyle is going to try to detect. Okay, for our simple tutorial though, we are going to stick with the parameter editor mode. Of course, parameter editor mode is a very look to be very complicated at first, but we're going to explain it in just a moment. So first of all, let's go ahead and delete this Freestyle that I had from before. And before getting to the parameter editor mode, let me tell you a few things, a few words before. In my opinion, Freestyle has been designed to primarily work better with shadeless materials. Of course, you can keep this effect if you want, but in my opinion, again, in my personal opinion, the shadeless materials are more suitable for Freestyle rendering. So let's go ahead and go to the material editor, and let's convert those materials into shadeless materials. All right, and as you can see now, if I go ahead and render, I think this is more, close to what Freestyle style is all about. Of course, now nothing has been drawn here, because I haven't set a line set for the editor for the parameter editor mode. If you remember, we have switched over to the parameter editor mode. So this mode, in order for this mode to work, we have first to go here and set a new line set. And the new line set is nothing more than a set of instructions about how Freestyle is going to draw or detect the edges, and how it's going to draw the lines and the outlines of my rendering. So in order to add the new line set, all you have to do is to click on this plus icon here. So we have added a new line set. Let's go ahead and name it this, something line set new. All right, and now first of all, let's we have here as well a column with edge detection types, and it is by default enabled this selection by image border, which as it explains the tip, it selects feature edges by image border, and this way it requires less memory. So this is good to be on, to be enabled by default. Now let's go ahead and click on this selection by edge types, and we're presented with a bunch of edge types to select from. First of all, by default, the silhouette and the border have also the crease, edge types have been enabled. So if I now go ahead and try a render, right, you can see that, as you can see here, that Freestyle has drawn these lines here, which correspond to this silhouette, which is this border around the object, and the border option as well, and the crease option, where we have where our mesh is really convex. I mean, it has an abrupt change. All right, this is a crease, so we have those lines here. All right, but we can add even more, and as you can see, it has drawn also some hidden lines, and that's why here it comes the selection by visibility option. So click on that, and you are presented with three options. You can limit the selection of edges to the visible, you can limit the selection to the hidden edges, or you can set a range for the selection. So if I selected hidden, for example, and pressed F12, now only those edges there that are not visible in the 3D geometry are going to get drawn. Well, normally we want this to be set to visible. So in this case, all right, Freestyle is going to draw only the visible edges in the geometry, as you can see. Now I can add more edge types to this rendering by going ahead and enabling these options here. Some of those options, for example, contour is going to add the contours. I mean, you know, those lines that you are going to see, those those lines. Of course, now we cannot see too many lines, and the reason for that is, if you remember from before, I told you that this kr derivative epsilon, whatever this is, if this is set to positive, only a few lines are going to be drawn, whereas if I set this to a negative value, you are going to see the difference in just a while. So let's set this to -41, F12 to render, and now you can see that it takes some time, or perhaps we need some more, and perhaps this works best with the suggestive contour. And if I now press F12, it should it should populate it, as you can see now. All right, with the suggestive option enabled, I have my drawing is populated by those edges here, and by taking this further down, this kr derivative epsilon factor, you can see that more lines, okay, are being drawn. Okay, so by this option I can select how much, I can set how much of this complexity, if you prefer, of my drawing. Alright, rich and valleys, it's another edge detection option you have. So it's going to be, you know, detecting, as you can see here, this ridge here. Okay, it's now drawn, those here as well. So you get the meaning. We can select all those from all those options we have here: external contour, material boundary. For example, if I wanted around this blue here eyeball, if I wanted a line here, now it should be drawn, get drawn. All right, as you can see, because I have enabled the material boundary option. Okay, so as you can see, I have this line around this where the material ends and a new starts. Okay, so that's the edge types we can select, we can choose from, and also we have two other options: selection from by face marks and selection by group. And of course, since I am happy with the overall selection of my edges, I can go ahead and actually adjust the style of the line itself. And this is something I can do here in the Freestyle line style. So I can go ahead and by default there is a line style here, and the line style can be edited by adjusting the options in those 6 tabs here, starting from stroke, color, alpha, thickness, geometry, and miscellaneous. Well, stroke, first of all, the stroke option gives you the ability, allows you for setting how the lines are going to get split or are going to get connected together. And we have in Freestyle 2 different concepts, and the one concept is the concept of chaining. And chaining, by chaining we mean that the end lines, the end points, excuse me, of 2 lines are going to get connected together using a line in between, and this is called chaining. And we have also splitting, and splitting is another concept. And by splitting we mean that the different lines are going to get cut or get split at certain points, given the adjustments that we make. We have set to the minimum or maximum angle. So if I set the minimum to the angle to let's say 14 degrees and the maximum angle to let's say 25 degrees, then the angles the lines should split that have an angle between to those 2D that have, excuse me, a 2D angle between 15 and 25 degrees. Alright, we have an option for splitting angles according to the length as well, and here we can adjust the length, and of course we have different options for the caps of the lines and things like that. This is about how the strokes are going to get drawn. Now the color of the line itself, I can adjust this from this color wheel here, and of course I have the option. Now if I make this blue, for example, you can see that my lines are going to turn blue, as you can see. Alright, so I can also for most of those buttons here I have an add modifier option, and this add modifier option gives me some options for altering, if you prefer, for altering my color, alpha, thickness, geometry, and the different properties of my line according to certain parameters. For example, along stroke, along distance from camera. For example, if I wanted to make my line to be a gradient of some sort, from starting from black and going all the way to white, alright, I could set a range minimum, a range maximum, and this will affect the change of the gradient along the depending on the distance from the camera, because I added the distance from camera modifier. So if I'm not sure about the minimum maximum range, I can always press this fill range by selection. So having selected my Suzanne, I can fill range by selection, and automatically it sets the range minimum and maximum values. So now if I press F12 to render, you can see that my line is going to get drawn, as you can see, with this gradient here in the color. Okay, all right. The same way I can control also the alpha or transparency of my, of my line. The same way by adding modifier, for example, distance from camera gain or material modifier, for example, and I have various options. And very important here, each one of those modifiers has an influence here slider. So if I go ahead and add yet another modifier, I can set the influence of this modifier, I can stack them on top of each other, and I can set the influence of each one of those modifiers by scrubbing the slider here. I can also change the blend mode, so I can have different results. All right. So I can also invert, and even more, I can go ahead and change the mapping of this modifier from linear to curve, and I can draw, all right, a curve. So this curve is going to be controlling how this modifier is going to be changing, altering in this given range here. So those, of course, are more advanced options, but I want to mention those here to you. All right, so we can have different results by superimposing different modifiers, and of course the options you have are really endless. So let's go ahead and delete those modifiers for the alpha, and let's set the alpha. Of course, you can very simply set the alpha just by scrubbing the very base transparency slider here, and this is the overall alpha value applied to all the the areas of the lines. A very important, of course, one is the thickness of the line itself. So I can set the thickness, the position of thickness to be the center, the inside, the outside, and we can have different, of course, results. And of course I can set first the thickness up here. It is set to 1 unit by default, but I can set this to as high as 5, for example. If I now go ahead and render, you can see a much thicker line drawing here, a much thicker line. As you can see, it has also the gradient from the color before, as you can see. Let's go ahead and delete this modifier really quick about the gradient now, and keep the yellow, the blue color here. So, and let's go ahead and play around a little bit with the thickness, property of our, rendering. So you have also the ability to, for the thickness, to set the thickness here, but you can select the where it's going to be the position of the thickness. I mean, center it or inside the object. I mean, this way, in this side of the object, or outside the border of the object. Okay, and you can, or you could define a thickness ratio between 0 and 1. All right, so you can set this manually, the position of the of the thickness of the line. All right, so I have set this to relative, and of course you can set a you can add a modifier. A very interesting modifier here. It is the calligraphy modifier, which adds a calligraphy effect, as you can see, to our to our drawing, to our rendering, excuse me. So you can see it's like a pen, ink pen calligraphy effect, and you can adjust the orientation, of course, of the tip of the pen, and the minimum thickness, the maximum thickness. Right, let's make this 20, for example, and you can see the difference here, just for you to see how different it's going to look by just adjusting all these various parameters here. All right, and of course let's make this 10 really quick, and you can add yet another modifier. Let's say distance from camera. Now the distance from camera is going to be controlling the thickness of the property of the line. And so I can again press fill range by selection. All right, and I can mix those two modifiers together by using the influence slider. So let's bring the this distance from camera to 0.5. All right, influence, something like that, and let's set this to, let's say, minimum perhaps, and I'm going to get a different result. In this at this point, I would like to tell you, let me tell you, how you could create those, sketchy effect on a piece of paper. This is really easy for you to do after what we have shown here now, because you can just go ahead to the materials, and the trick I like to use for creating, let's say, blueprints or sketchy monochrome sketches is to go and make all the materials to have the same color as the background color. So if, let's say, I had this background color set to this this blue, light blue, all right, let's go ahead and make this material color the same. So just click on this color wheel and select the selector, click on the rendering here somewhere in the background, and now we have the same color for this material. Let's make the same thing, let's do the same thing for the second material, and let's make the material for the eyes to have the same color as the color of the line. So let's go ahead and set the line to something to have a color. Let's go to the color of the line, of course, and let's make this color here to be black, and now I can set the material for the eyes to be black as well. So we have a consistent color across our rendering. All right, so let's press now F12 and see how it looks like. All right, so as you can see, it takes a while to render, but as you can see, we have something very sketchy look. I mean, like if we had drawn if we had drawn Suzanne on a piece of paper of some sort. Okay, so now, of course, we can still go ahead and play with the different settings for the thickness. As I told you before, you can add more modifiers here, and you can adjust by scrubbing the slider. You can play with the influence of each one modifiers and the blend mode they have. Right, they are mixed together. Of course, you need to play a lot with all those parameters. It's really a huge amount of parameters, but the results are interesting, should be interesting nevertheless. So now let's go ahead and go to the geometry property tab, and here you can actually change the geometry of the lines themselves. So by default, a sampling modifier has been added, and this sampling modifier, it's, well, to my knowledge, this seems to be something like a seed factor. It's time you change this. A different value for sampling the 3D scene has been set, and this sampling value is affecting the modifiers that underneath. So if I'm going ahead, you have a bunch of modifiers here to choose from. Like, for example, we can add something like Berlin noise 2D. Let's try this out. And you can see that this effect here, this modifier, adds this sketchy look to your, to your rendering. And of course, you can play always with the frequency. Let's set this to 41. You can play with the amplitude to 14 something, and let's press F12 to render. And this way, with this Berlin noise, we can add a sketchy, look to our drawing. All right, as you can see, this is line, something like lines drawn by pencil, using a pencil. And of course, you have octaves here. You have the angle. You can adjust the angle of rotation of the lines and the seed for getting different results. This is just one example, and you can play with the 2D transform. You can set here a sender, a position of the transform, and this actually what it does, it changes all the lines, right, given a scale x along the x and a scale along the y value, and of course the rotation angle. So by setting a scale of 2 in the y angle, all right, so you can see that here we have a very different geometry. You should see Suzanne now being, as you can see here, all the lines have been actually scaled along the y-axis. We have a very different drawing. Of course, we can change the rotation angle to 14. Again, you are going to see a very different transformation. And this is about the 2D transform. And as you can see here, now we have a very different result. Of course, you have something like polygonization, where it turns all the curves into straight lines. We have spatial noise, for example. We have blueprint. Well, this draws lines, circles and things like that. Let's try out the spatial noise here. And you have to go ahead and play around with all those modifiers. Of course, we cannot explain all those, and you can get very different results each time you change those. Those so many parameters here. All right. So but the main point is that for you to keep to take home, if you prefer, is that we have two main different modes: the Python script mode, preset Python scripts that work really well in most of the cases, or if you want to dig in, just go ahead and switch over to the parameter editor mode and start playing with all those various parameters, and of course try to keep the materials shadeless. All right, if you prefer this, if you like this look. Personally, I do like the look of of a sketch on paper. I think this is why what the Freestyle has been designed for, if you ask me. And of course, let's go ahead and delete those modifiers here, of course. And of course, you can play with and if you want to give this look of sketchy look, just give to these materials the background color material. And yeah, so very important. I think that in the latest, the most recent releases, Freestyle now supports also the orthographic camera. We had some problems, some issues with the orthographic camera in the past, so I think it now supports also the orthographic camera as well. So just go ahead and try this out as well for making, let's say, blueprints and things like that. All right, it's up to you. All right, and yeah, so that was our tutorial for today. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something as a basic introduction to to the very good Freestyle here plugin, if you prefer. And yeah, I hope you liked it and you learned something from this. If you like this, don't forget to subscribe. So see you next time, hopefully soon, with another hopefully interesting tutorial. Until then, hopefully soon, have fun and goodbye.